Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton, New Jersey. It is April 10th, 2023. Thanks for joining us. Madam Clerk, can we have the meeting statement, please?
Yes, Mayor. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, including the time, date, and location of the meeting. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you. Leticia?
Yes, thank you. We gather today on the land of the Lenni Lenape. As members of the Princeton community, we aspire to show appreciation, respect, and concern for all peoples and our environment. We honor the Lenape and other indigenous caretakers of these lands and waters, the elders who lived here before, the indigenous today, and the generations to come.
Thank you very much. All right, sorry, we're just checking one thing in the control room in the back. There's screens that we all look at right in front of us. Oh, there we go, that are now working. Sorry. Technology is amazing when it works. All right. Could we have the roll call, please?
Ms. Perron-Lambros,
Here.
Ms. Niedergang,
Here.
Mr. Cohen,
Here.
Ms. Sachs,
Here.
Ms. Fraga,
Here,
Mr. Newland,
Here.
Mayor Frida.
Here. If you'd like to stand and join us in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. First up, we have two sets of minutes. If someone wants to move those. Eve, thank you very much. Is there a second? Leighton's got the second. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Eve?
Just a continued thank you to our clerk's office. As I was looking at the resumes of some of our potential incoming clerks, there was one person who said they cleaned up a 2-year backlog when they started their job as a clerk in a particular unnamed town. So thank you for making sure we're not in that predicament.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Leticia.
yes, I also want to comment that for the March 27th meeting, I was absent, so I'm going to abstain from
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. All right, nothing else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions on the 27th? Thank you very much. Okay, announcements and reports are up. Isaac, I think you are the first on the list.
Great. Thank you, Your Honor. Isaac Kramer, Executive Director of Experience Princeton. Give my brief report, less than 2 minutes is my goal. So we held our Experience Princeton meetup at the Princeton Senior Resource Center on March 30th. Very well attended. It's a beautiful facility. I think we should all be really proud to have that here in town. Recently, we also met with municipal staff to discuss allowable uses and how we can update those to really welcome these new types of businesses we want to attract here. Our restaurant week was very successful. I'm pleased to report over $174,000 of sales. That's 6,196 meals that were served by 40 restaurants. Very pleased with those results. Our e-blast continued to go out on the first of the month. That's 3,074 cents and a 54% open rate. Several businesses have been opened, and I say, Mayor, we're working on your muscle strength with those scissors. That we're happy to have Salon X Spa at 163 Bayer, Alpha Fitness Club at Princeton Shopping Center, and Innovative Physical Therapy also at Princeton Shopping Center. Last week we submitted a $50,000 grant to T-Mobile to assist businesses with outdoor dining. We attended the Main Street Now conference in Boston 2 weeks ago, and Experience Princeton received some very favorable attention in the opening and closing sessions and in a special educational session we delivered. What are we working on the next 30 days? Board training and development, including a board retreat in June. We're looking to select a company to do website management from responses to an RFP that was recently issued. Also, short-term rapid public art installations through town. That's with our streetscapes team. and a wayfinding pilot project to highlight businesses on Spring and Tulane Street that sometimes get overlooked. And finally, we formed a nominating team to welcome in the new board members. One big item to leave you with that we can all think about and also look forward to, I'd add, is on Friday, News 12 will be visiting Princeton between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. and doing 8 live spots throughout town. So we're working to line each of those up, but please stay tuned. It should be very nice recognition for us here. With that, that's my report.
Isaac, thank you very much, and thanks a lot for handling the thing with News 12 for Friday. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Isaac? Other than thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, let's jump to council announcements and reports. Leticia?
Yes, just a reminder that this coming Saturday, April 15th, in collaboration with the Princeton University Art Museum, Human Services is going to be hosting a community building event. I've already welcomed my colleagues to join me and to serve as celebrity callers if you're available. And this is on April 15th from 3 to 5 p.m. And it's going to be at the Art on Hallfish Gallery, where you also have an opportunity to view the You Belong Here Latinx exhibit. But everyone's welcome. Come and win prizes.
Thank you. Other announcements, or Eve?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few things. I wanted to announce that Princeton's annual stream cleanup, which is co-hosted by the Environmental Commission and the Watershed Institute, will be held on Earth Day, Saturday, April 22nd, at Hilltop Park from 9 to 11. And this year, in a break from tradition, instead of giving out T-shirts, which are becoming more problematic environmentally, there will be saplings available, native species, for all who participate. You're supposed to register for this event, so you can do this either by clicking on the link in the newsletter or going to the Watershed website. And then I wanted to talk to my colleagues a little bit about another initiative that the Environmental Commission is working on, and hopefully get your support for this. So the Environmental Commission has been working really for a number of years on a greenhouse tour, green and house being two separate words. So tours that can be done both in person and through video, through virtually, of houses that use advanced environmental sustainability features. And PC's been working with owners and architects in town to line up some really excellent examples of this. It turns out that the municipality, that PEC is an arm of the municipality, needs to do releases and waivers for people that are visiting the owners of the properties and people who will be visiting the houses, and that's going to involve a little bit of attorney time. And so I just wanted to, after conversations with the legal team, just wanted to let my colleagues know, and hope that we have your support with this project, which I think really lines up with our environmental sustainability goals, with the climate action plan, and with our desire to make the community energy efficient. So I don't think it's an enormous amount of time, but it's probably a couple of hours to make sure we have a waiver. As our attorney said, municipalities have deep pockets compared to individual homeowners, and so we don't want to be a target, and we want to make sure we have an airtight waiver. So I don't know if anybody has any comment on this, any concerns, any enthusiasm?
I have
Excellent.
enthusiastic support for you. Good
Thank
idea.
you. Thank you. All right, great. And then I just want to, a couple of more quick things. The library, and Kim Dorman from the library is here tonight, just finished its Environmental Film Festival most of which, unfortunately, I missed. But Kim told me today that there'll be a screening and discussion through Princeton University's Office of Sustainability on Monday, the 17th, of a short film called Dark Sacred Night. And it's about light pollution and what we lose when we live in light-polluted environments. And both the director and the Princeton astrophysicist, who was the lead spokesperson in this, will be on hand to discuss. So that's at the Frist Center Monday at noon, and you can register, I think, maybe you have to go to the University Office of Sustainability to do that. Finally, I just want to mention that the Princeton Senior Resource Center's Spring Fundraiser, fundraiser will be on Sunday, April 30th at 7 p.m. Keith Spencer will be having a concert at Stonehill Church. I will mangle no more English tonight.
There we go. Thank you. David?
Yeah, just wanted to remind everybody that Shredfest is on Saturday the 15th. You can go before Lotteria and then go check out Lotteria as well.
Yeah, I think our engineering department's going to talk more about that also in just a little bit. Other council announcements or reports? Okay, let's jump to staff reports. Bernie, I'll start with you. Okay. Deanna?
Thank you, Mayor. As David mentioned, this Saturday, April 15th, Princeton Spring Shred Fest. I think I've got your disease there. The Shred Fest event will be held from 10 to 2 on Saturday at Westminster Choir College off of Franklin Avenue. Sustainable Princeton will be joining and collecting goods for upcycling.
Deanna, is your mic on?
It is. I'm not speaking close enough.
That's much better.
Thank you. As you see in front of me, we have an effort this spring to sell discounted rain barrels and composters. Residents of Princeton can apply through the website to purchase these items for a discount until April 13th, and they will be available for pickup at Shredfest. Princeton is subsidizing the cost of these items by using a portion of our New Jersey Municipal Recycling Tonnage Grant funds. The composters help divert food waste and organic materials from our trash and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the rain barrels reduce water costs, keep our water clean, and provide a source of water for plants and gardens while reducing the number of pollutants that enter our storm drains. And if you haven't checked it out on Instagram and Facebook, the mayor does have a very exciting little video about these two items and our ongoing sale. There are also flyers in the back of the room about Shredfest, so feel free to pick those up before you leave. On the organic food waste front, Melissa Camp from our office and Sustainable Princeton had recently presented at the Tri-County Sustainability Meeting about Princeton's efforts to reduce or to divert organics from the waste stream. The waste team and Sustainable Princeton have had an ongoing research project to look at options to restart and reintroduce an organics program in Princeton. There is a federal grant program that's coming up with a deadline mid-June that might be an opportunity to restart our program. So we'll be looking to introduce and review the program with the I&O committee later this month at our monthly meeting. And if there is interest, we'll be bringing it to council in May to consider a small-scale but scalable organics program to restart in Princeton. Another topic, seasonal topic, is outdoor dining and sidewalk cafes. Restaurants and food retailers are reminded to apply for the annual sidewalk cafe permit through the clerk's office. A letter was recently sent to all food establishments to remind them of this permit application process. We're also working with the Department of Transportation regarding regulations for outdoor dining on Nassau Street. Just today, we finally received some new guidelines and permit requirements, so we will be reviewing that with Experience Princeton and with staff to see what that means for our businesses along Nassau Street. But we do anticipate coming to council in the next month or so with a amendment to the sidewalk cafe ordinance. So stay tuned for that. And lastly, for our updates is on May 10th at 7 p.m., we will be having a neighborhood pre-construction meeting in this room for Witherspoon Phase 2. So later on in the agenda, Jim's going to be presenting the concept plan for Witherspoon Phase 3. What we'll be discussing is the construction project for Witherspoon Phase 2, which is Green Street to Lee Avenue. So that's it for staff.
Thank you very much. Okay, why don't we do we have 2 months of police reports?
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. The February and March chiefs of reports have been
Yeah, Tom, you gotta
completed.
speak like, you gotta get that microphone almost in your mouth for them to pick it up for the people on Zoom.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you, Mayor and council.
Yeah, I gotta find it.
Chief Bukhari has completed the February and March chiefs report, and they will be posted to the website shortly. As requested, the March report, we've added the 2019 statistics for comparison. As far as updates, we are continuing our recruitment process, and we've had our first recruitment open house in which we had possible candidates as well as local residents come and meet not only the officers, but got to see all the facilities in which we have in order to get the top candidates possible to apply and possibly become Princeton police officers. The Princeton PD as well as Princeton PBA Local 130 is partnering up with Uber as well as local restaurants and bars. And we're starting a plan called the Let Princeton PD Provide Your DD. Basically what this is the Princeton Police Department Union has pledged an amount of money for people that wish to get a free Uber ride from restaurants and bars in the town to their local residences within Princeton, not only hoping to promote having a designated driver and getting home safely, but also to help promote the local bars and restaurants here in town. And lastly, Wednesday of this week, we will be going through our state accreditation through the New Jersey State Chiefs of Police Association. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? David?
Yeah, just one thing I noticed reviewing the reports, the patrol overtime for March was a big jump, and I was wondering if you know what the reason is for that.
So this month, there was some accrued overtime. As per our contract, as of right now, we had both the state PBA meetings this week where 10% of our body is allowed to go through to the PBA meetings. And unfortunately, we're also short a few officers due to there's a member out for the National Guard and some long-term illnesses. So that is some of the reasons that it has gone up this past month.
Thanks.
Thank you. Eve?
I just wanted to thank you for both the things you highlighted. Getting the 2019 data is so, I mean, it's just, we're still not back to quote unquote normal. And so looking at the 2019 is kind of anchoring. So I really appreciate that. I went through February and then I went through March and I felt like I had more context. So hopefully we won't have to do that for the next 10 years, but for now. And also I'm so thrilled, just want to, say that, the program that our traffic safety officer, Mike Strobel, Sergeant Strobel, first brought to us this, ride program for people that don't feel comfortable driving home or maybe get there and go home. It's such an amazing addition to the town. So just please extend our thanks to all your fellow officers. Really appreciate it.
I will, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Any other staff reports? All right, great. Next up is the municipal budget. So we have an ordinance 2023-11, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. So this is the public hearing on that. Is there a motion for that? Thank you, Michelle. David's got the second. All right, we'll start up here. Any council questions or comments? No? Okay. Anybody in the room have any questions or comments on that one? All right, and then, I'm sorry?
So I do just want to thank Sandy for all her hard work. For those who were paying attention when this was first introduced, it was almost double the tax increase of what we're ending up with, and it's largely thanks to her hard work. So thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.
That's a very good idea. Okay.
Would it- I was just going to ask if it was appropriate to say a couple of words about what some of the drivers were, but
Well,
maybe
I
Michelle
was
wanted to
prepared.
speak
Yeah,
to that.
I was going to speak at the resolution, not the ordinance, so.
Yeah, I was just going to see if there's any questions from people
So go ahead.
remote, and then we jump right back to that.
Okay.
So to the folks in the control room, as I can't see people that are online, do we have anybody with their hands up online with questions on this? Okay, no questions for anyone remote? Sorry. Michelle, I was just waiting till you were taking a drink to ask you to talk.
No, that's okay.
Timing's everything.
Sorry, I didn't want to speak out of turn, but, so I just want to, I was going to thank Sandy again and the team and Bernie. When we introduced the original operating budget was going to be, we were estimating, and I said worst case scenario, right, 4.5 cents. So we're down to 2.9. And in large part, that's because the university's $5 million contribution, which is consistent with the conversations we've been having with the university. We're working, the negotiating team, working with them to finalize our new voluntary payment agreement. With this contribution, we were able to adjust, and with Sandy's and, looking at the budget as a whole, we were able to adjust the increase in the tax rate down from this 4.5 cents to 2.9 cent increase. So that sounds very ethereal, so I'll just put it into perspective. The impact to a resident's tax bill, the annual property tax bill increase would be $279 as opposed to $459. So I thank you for saving the taxpayers the additional increase, and I'm really happy that we have this relationship with the university. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Eve?
I just want to say, I know we talked about this when we introduced the budget, but just a couple of words about what some of the drivers were. We had a very large increase in employee health care costs, and our waste management costs have gone up. Plus, there's the kind of general sort of pandemic inflationary costs of fuel and other products that we're buying. We're finding that, just like everyone, when we go to the grocery store, some prices for equipment we're replacing is just shockingly high. So I want to commend Sandy, Bernie, Michelle, everyone on the finance team who worked on this, who really worked very hard to bring this down. It's still a tax increase, which we don't like to see, but it's a lot less than we initially started at, and there was a lot of creative thinking and hard work that went into that, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Leighton?
I just want to echo what my colleagues have said. We have an extraordinary and excellent finance team, and our residents here at every level are well served. Thank you, Sandy, and to the rest of your team.
Okay. All right, good. So can we have a roll call vote on this, please?
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Newland?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is 23-147, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton to amend the 2023 municipal budget, public hearing, April 24th, 2023. Is there a motion? Michelle, thank you. Eve's got the second. Okay, and that is a roll call vote.
Ms. Perron-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Newland?
Yes.
Just so everybody in the audience follows, the second item was a resolution announcing that there will be a public hearing at a future date. So we don't talk about when we introduce something, because the discussion is held at the public hearing, just so everybody follows why we did that. All right, next up, we have a presentation. Welcome to Princeton. Nick, I believe you're up.
And while he's setting up, if I may give just a brief background of how this started, even going back to more recently. Back in 2019, I think there was an effort led by Daniel Harris. I think some of you remember Daniel, who worked on a subcommittee along with members of Not in Our Town that work with the subcommittee of the Civil Rights Commission. At the time, the effort was to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. And part of that discussion was also the signage, as well as the land acknowledgement that we now do on council. Also, some of our boards, commissions, and committees are also do a land acknowledgement at the top of their meeting. And I also want to comment that since we started doing that, I hear from other municipalities, other communities who have heard of our land acknowledgement that have reached out to ask not only about Indigenous Peoples Day, but also want to see the draft language of our land acknowledgement, because they also want to adopt something similar. So, Princeton really led the way on that, and I hope we will continue to do that. But I did want to acknowledge and recognize not only the work of Daniel Harris, Kim Dorman, who was on the Civil Rights Commission at the time, members of Not in Our Town, and also the current members of our Civil Rights Commission, as well as thank you to Bob Durkee for picking up the torch again and getting us to work up, to bring it back up again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fraga. So my name is Nick DiDomizio. I currently serve on the Princeton Civil Rights Commission, and I'm here to present about Princeton's Welcome to Princeton signs. So you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So just to give a brief or a quick overview, so the current Welcome to Princeton signs appear on every major route that enters the municipality, and they currently acknowledge when the first structure was built within the municipal boundary by European settlers. So that's where the settled 1683 comes from. Over the years, many have questioned why this historical data point has deserved such visual prominence for residents and visitors alike who enter the municipal borders. The word settled implies that this is the first and only time that people have inhabited this land. Some would argue that the Lenape people inhabited this land before the European settlers did. So we can go, yep. So the Civil Rights Commission believes that the current language on the Welcome to Princeton signs is not inclusive and implicitly ignores the history of the indigenous people that inhabited this land prior to the European settlers. The Commission recommends the removal of the verbiage settled 1683 from the signs if it is the only verbiage on the signs that acknowledges Princeton's history. In addition, the Commission recommends that the In addition, the Commission recommends that historical information on new signs should at minimum have an acknowledgement of the historic homeland of the Lenape people or other equivalent as recommended by Indigenous leaders. And the signs could also include other information, such as a municipal-centric time point, like Consolidated in 2013, which is, I believe, when these signs were put up, or other historical data points that relate to historical events or historical neighborhoods within the municipality of Princeton. So in these next 3 slides, I'll just give a brief overview. There are a couple of case studies that I thought I would present to Mayor and Council as some examples of other cities across the country who have implemented this. So the first is Berkeley in Albany, California. So Berkeley was the first city in the country to rename October 12th as Indigenous Peoples Day, although I think Princeton followed shortly thereafter, so thank you for that. So they voted, the council voted to change their signs to acknowledge the territory as Ohlone territory. And Albany also changed their signs as well. And Albany also passed a resolution to work with the Confederated Villages and the Land Trust, which is kind of their local representative for the Indigenous people, to work on other ways that they can acknowledge, you know, and work on repairing this sort of sordid history. So that included drafting a land acknowledgement, dedicating a section of their park to the Ohlone people, and working with the school district to provide more education in their curriculum. The second example here is in Waunakee, Wisconsin. So Waunakee currently occupies the ancestral land of the Ho-Chunk people. And in 2022, they worked with local officials to raise a flag and also add the Ho-Chunk emblem to their welcome signs. So that's kind of similar to what we're looking at here. And in addition, Waunakee has a wonderful section on their municipal website that I highly recommend, and I've linked in this presentation as well, that people look at, which provides a lot of information and resources about the Ho-Chunk Nation. And this website was in a partnership with the University of Wisconsin, which is just nearby in Madison. And then the last example is not actually a municipality, but I thought that it was pertinent for this discussion. So that Northern Michigan University put up a sign to acknowledge the ancestral homelands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy. And this was put in a very it was put in a location that was near an entryway for a forest and trail that was used by the indigenous people who lived there. And I thought this was a good example because, you know, the welcome signs are one example of how we could do this, but there could be other ways as well. They could be in more visually and prominent and accessible locations. So we do have some points of consideration for council. The first should be that if there is a process to change the signs that acknowledges the historic homeland of the Lenape people, it should include the representatives. And there are people here tonight who've worked with these representatives that I think that they could serve as great resources. Another consideration is the current Welcome to Princeton signs are located in largely inaccessible places on foot. So, you know, most of them it's like in a 45-mile-per-hour zone with no sidewalk. So, you know, if we do end up changing the signs, there should also be resources that are available via the municipal website, and we could use Waunakee's example to consider a collaboration with Princeton or Rutgers or another local academic institution with an Indigenous Studies department so they can bring their expertise and it can be more of a collaboration. And then the last thing is that the sign is a gesture, but it is not enacting change. So, you know, this would only be the beginning of the conversation, we hope, and that there would be other action to make sure that we work towards acknowledging Indigenous people in Princeton. And then, of course, there's the long-term plan. So this advice I got from the Native Governance Center, they kind of speak to this as well. This is more in terms of a land acknowledgement, and they say that there are other ways that municipalities can support Indigenous people, which includes supporting Indigenous organizations by donating time or money, supporting, you know, Indigenous-led grassroots change movements and campaigns, and also committing to returning land. So with that, I believe that's the conclusion of the presentation. And although Councilwoman Fraga already said these thank yous, I just wanted to reiterate. I wanted to thank, civil rights commissioners past and present who've worked on this, not in our town, in the Truth and Transformation Committee. Some people are here tonight from that. Dr. Sarah Rivet, who provided some really great guidance and is a great resource from Princeton, Bob Durkee, and of course members of the public who have wrote to the CRC over the years to express their concerns. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Council, questions, comments? David.
Thanks, Nick. So I like the idea of changing the signs, but I also like the idea of, the fact that Princeton's history has difficult moments of expropriation of indigenous people. It doesn't invalidate the importance of our history, as a European colony. I don't think consolidation rises to the level of being recognized on the signs, but, we could recognize that we were the U.S. Capitol for however many days it was that, the Constitutional Convention, met here, or something like that, along with recognizing the Lenni Lenape. That's sort of the direction I'd like to see us go in. And then I also just wanted to comment that I know in our conversations with the Ridgeway Conservancy that, there are some pieces of land right close to Cherry Valley Road where there's some archaeological remains of Lenni and Lenape campsites or something like that. And, I think it would be a really positive thing if we could acquire some of those properties and create learning experiences there. Again, it's not super accessible to people because it's sort of on the outskirts of town. So I think it deserves more conversation. I just don't personally know where else in town might be appropriate, but I like the idea of having, educational resources somewhere in our open space.
Okay, so I'm just going to jump to this side for a second. Okay, Leighton had his hand up first, then we'll just work.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nick, and all who participated and support the presentation. I am 100% in support of the presentation, as you stated. Today I was coming on Alexander Road from Princeton Junction, and as you come down past the canoes, you see the sign, Welcome to Princeton, and right behind that, and if you go by there tomorrow, take a look, there's a little orange and black sign that says, Open Mind, Open Town. It's almost hidden, and obviously it's not a municipal sign. Somebody has taken the time to put it and place it there. And I can only say that a sign that recognizes on behalf of the municipality of Princeton not just some of the truth, but all of the truth, tells people who visit this town a lot, not just about our history, but about our present and about the mindset of the people who live here now. It is a wonderful idea. It speaks of truth, and it speaks of the great history and the total history of Princeton, not just the Revolutionary War and how important Princeton and Trenton were in the defeat of the British and in bringing the democracy up front, close and personal, but the Native American Indians that lived here before we did, we owe them a debt of gratitude as well. Thank you for your presentation. It's well done.
All right, why don't we just stay on this side, Leticia, and
Yes.
then we'll jump back to...
Thank you, Nick. Great presentation. Obviously, I'm 100% on board. And I just wanted to give you some more background. When my family first immigrated to the U.S., we settled in Washington State. Is settled the right word? I'm having second thoughts on that. No, but for me, where we lived, it was just a given. We recognized whose land it was. I went to Kennewick High School. Our rival high school was Keewaydin. We picnicked at Sacagawea Park. and we camped at Wenatchee State Park. So there was a lot of, even like Walla Walla, Washington, that's actually native lands and acknowledgement to who was there before. So for me, when it was first came to our attention, it was Daniel Harris that I think first came to a council meeting back then and encouraged us, advocated for Indigenous Peoples Day, but we also talked about the signage. I wish we had been working on it and gotten something then, but it's never too late. It's just I hadn't really thought about that. We're not acknowledging those who came before us, so I think it's time we changed that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Michelle, and then Eve.
I thank you so much for bringing this to our attention and for doing all this hard work. It's so important, it's our welcome, it's our image, it's what we're saying to people every day who pass by it and new people who come to town. And I just think it's a wonderful acknowledgement if we can make these changes. So I just want to say, I know you've done a lot of work. There's a lot of work ahead to create the right design, the right message, and get it done. So I totally support this effort. Anything that we can do to help, just let us know. I think that it needs a design. I think you're already on the right track, and having representatives of the Lenape people to help with that is essential. So I just commend all of you, and so let's get it done. I think it's a great effort. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick, and members of the Civil Rights Commission, everyone else who contributed to this. I know that this was brought up many years ago by Daniel Harris, but I was not aware of that, and I had my own little personal moment one day driving into town, all of a sudden like seeing the sign for the first time and just cringing. So as Michelle just said, I think figuring out what to do is going to be a bit of a long process. And what I want to do is get out there with some white paint and get rid of settled 1683. Deanna is conveniently here. So I'm wondering, is there some way that we can just get rid of that part of the sign while we take the time to figure out what it should be? Because really, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it's so painful. And I remember like calling up Leticia and saying, the sign, we have to do something about the sign, as if I was the first person who'd noticed it, which I had not been, obviously. But I just wonder if there's some action we can take that kind of gives us the leeway to figure out what the right thing is, but removes this glaring issue. So
I just as from a practical point, I think Nick, I'm sorry. From a practical point, Nick, I just think we could work through our administrator and we can figure out what things we could do near term, short term,
Yeah.
and then what things will take a little longer. And we can also figure out a mechanism so we have the line of communication. And Leticia is obviously the liaison to the Civil Rights Commission, but between Bernie and Leticia, we'll figure out how to get the municipal steamroller moving more than slowly. So. Anyway, I just want to make sure we talk about that. There is a
Sure.
way to take next steps.
Yeah.
And in addition, obviously, thank you everyone for all your time and effort, but I do want to make sure that we actually have an avenue to do something and not just
Right.
chat about it. Sorry.
Thank you, Nick. So I obviously support this, but I have an issue with another part of the sign, which is the welcome to Princeton part, because in many ways we are not a welcoming town. And I feel like that is equally problematic as the part that's underneath. And I hope that we will give equal attention not only to those peoples that we've displaced, but also to the people that we would like to join us in our town in the future, and that we also will be forward-facing and thinking about who should be inhabiting our town. And that's just my comment. So, but thank you so much, as always.
If I may, I just wanted to add, I want to thank my colleagues for your very positive feedback, because I think that's, I know CRC was hoping that we would provide feedback, but also some action steps. You mentioned we should work with our administrator, but if there's anything else that the CRC should be considering, do you want to see the research that's been done to date, other recommendations that have been made as far as signage is concerned? I know Kim worked on that for quite a bit, including having conversations with some of our tribal leaders. So definitely we know we want to involve them in the conversation as well.
I would just suggest if you've done anything beyond the presentation tonight, certainly give that to us so we can look at that, and we're not trying to reinvent what you've already done. And I think that'd be helpful in moving this forward.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And I believe we have members of the public too who came specifically to comment on this.
Yep, that's what we usually do. All right, so anyone in the room that wants to get up and come to the podium and say anything, just come on up, say your name and address, and make your comments, and happy to listen.
Oh, thank you. I'm Bob Durkee, and I want to just start with an aside, Letitia, and say that one of my good friends in life was Sister Kathleen Ross, who was the founding president of Heritage College in Yakima. In terms of what you said, I just wanted to acknowledge that I thought she was an instrumental person in making a positive difference in that part of the world.
Thank you.
So my name is Bob Durkee. I appreciate this opportunity to speak in favor of the recommendations by the Civil Rights Commission that the words "settled in 1683" be removed from the Welcome to Princeton signs, and that going forward the signs acknowledge the lands on which Princeton is located as an historic or ancestral homeland of the Lenape people. This council begins its meetings with this acknowledgement, as do many other organizations in our community. I believe it is time to give this acknowledgement more tangible expression by posting it where residents and visitors can see it every time they drive into Princeton. Since these signs are designed and positioned to be read by motorists, I would suggest they not be used to convey additional messages beyond that. At the same time, I strongly endorse the idea of finding other ways to inform both residents and visitors about what the Commission describes as major historical events or historic neighborhoods within the municipality of Princeton. This could take the form of QR codes strategically placed around town that lead to a timeline on the municipal website, or even an actual timeline that could be displayed at Heinz Plaza, Palmer Square, Town Hall, the Battle Monument, and elsewhere. It would be interesting to invite members of the community, the Historical Society, and others to help select what should be included in such a timeline. In addition to information about the Lenape people, it could include a reference to the first permanent structure by European settlers in 1683, the Battle of Princeton in 1777, the 4 months in 1783 when Princeton was the nation's capital, the arrival of the College of New Jersey, now Princeton University, in 1756, the creation of the borough in 1813, the township in 1838, and their consolidation in 2013. The role of Betsy Stockton in establishing a school for black children in 1837 and founding the Witherspoon Street Presbyterian Church in 1840. The birth of Paul Robeson in 1898. The construction of Lake Carnegie in 1906. The arrival of Albert Einstein as a resident in 1933. and the designation of the Witherspoon-Jackson Historic District in 2016. I hope the council will seriously consider commissioning such a project. It would be a fitting way to commemorate the 10th anniversary of consolidation by placing that milestone in a broader historical context. But prior to that, I hope the council will endorse the Civil Rights Commission's principal recommendation that the Welcome to Princeton signs acknowledge the Lenni Lenape as the initial human inhabitants and caretakers of these lands in which we now live, and that it do so promptly so the new signs can be in place prior to the celebration of Indigenous Peoples Day next fall. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else want to come on up? Come on up. We do have a 3-minute timer, but take your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Paula Alexson. I'm actually a resident of Trenton. I live at 127 Vroom Street in Trenton, but I work at McCarter Theater Center here in Princeton and am a member of the Indigenous and Lenape Inclusion Working Group. I'm here tonight to support the recommendation of the Civil Rights Commission that the verbiage settled in 1683 be removed from the Welcome to Princeton signs, and that with appropriate counsel from representatives of the Lenape people, an acknowledgement of the Lenape history of Princeton as part of the territory of Lenapehoking be included on the sign. And if I may share a few additional thoughts quickly. In my recent conversations with Native and Indigenous peoples, I have learned that the harm of historic and ongoing erasure is something that we must and can disrupt. In a recent episode of his podcast, Be Anti-Racist, by Ibrahim X. Kendi, he hosted David Truer, an Ojibwe Indian from the Leech Lake Reservation in northern Minnesota, who wrote the book, The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee, Native America from 1890 to the Present, which was a finalist for the National Book Award in 2019. Kendi brought up former U.S. Senator and CNN political contributor Rick Santorum's comment about how European colonists and settlers birthed a nation from nothing. Santorum said, quote, "We came here and created a blank slate. We birthed a nation from nothing. I mean, there was nothing here. I mean, yes, we have Native Americans, but candidly, there isn't much Native American culture in American culture," end quote. Truer responded, and this is the important quote, "Presently, among the larger gamut of anti-nativeness in the U.S., the idea of nothingness that Rick Santorum expresses that so many Americans believe is the most damaging, the idea that natives are not actually here, an insistence in our national storytelling on our, that is, native disappearance." The quote continues, "That idea undergirded and the exploitation and settlement of this entire continent, that was the story that people told even way back when, as people were manifesting their destiny to justify the theft of land, because it's not really theft if no one is here to own it. And that has proven to be a durable myth," end quote. Thank you for your work, as a council in changing that myth.
Thank you. Do we have others that want to come up and say anything?
A lot of what I was going to say has already been said. Wilma Solomon, I live at 41 TR Place, and I'm a member of the Truth and Transformation Committee, which is part of Not in Our Town, Princeton. I think we all know the power of telling the truth when we harm someone and do what we can to make it right. It's not always easy, but it can be a path to healing and to deeper connection. Several years ago, thanks to the initiative of Roberto Schiraldi, who was a member of Not in Our Town at the time, a group formed to begin the process to uncover the history and trauma related to African Americans and indigenous peoples in our Princeton area, to acknowledge this as a community and begin the repair needed for healing. And we actually began by looking within ourselves, our Truth and Transformation group, Because as James Baldwin said, we cannot change what we don't face. So we believe engagement and collaboration with our community and our institutions is a necessary aspect of our work. Last year we collaborated with you and the Civil Rights Commission, and you've passed a resolution supporting the New Jersey Reparations Task Force. And as Letitia has already told us, spoke about the Indigenous Peoples' Day, which some of us in Truth and Transformation, Daniel Harris and others were involved. And so this is a logical next step. And we know that Reverend John Norwood, who's the founding pastor of the Ujima Village Christian Church, and also a Nanticoke Lenni Lenape tribal councilman and judge, government liaison for the Confederation of Sovereign Nanticoke Lenape Tribes, is in full agreement. We're very grateful to our chair of Civil Rights Commission, Fern Sproul, Nick DiDomizio, other members, Letitia Fraga as the liaison, Bob Durkee, Kim Dorman, Professor Sarah Rivet at Princeton University for all the great collaboration. And we hope, and it sounds like you are moving forward with it. We look forward to continue to work with the Civil Rights Commission, Princeton University, other Princeton institutions and individuals to create some signage proposals with accurate alternatives, and importantly, has been spoken about, other avenues for education and repair for both our Indigenous predecessors and those who are present, and also the members of our African American community, past and present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unlike everybody else who has spoken so eloquently, I don't have any formal comments, but because I've been mentioned, I felt that I should say something. First, I wanted to thank, totally separately, all of our council members for all of the hard work that you're always doing.
Kim,
I think you get a lot of...
I'm sorry, just for the record, would you just,
My
so
name
when
is
they do
Kim
the minutes
Dorman.
later, they know who was talking?
Kim Dorman,
Thanks.
88 Patton Avenue. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you all for all of your hard work. I know that you guys get a lot of grief from people all the time, so I just want to say thank you. I appreciate everything that you do all the time, whether I agree with it or not. Well, first, I just, why I first became interested in this is because I was driving over Carnegie and I saw the sign, I saw the word settled, and it unsettled me. And then I was at an Indigenous conference that was on campus a few months later, and it was 2 days, many panels, all people from all over the country, all over the world, all Indigenous speaking, and several people stood up and said how offended they were coming into town by the sign. So this is like a real thing. People are offended and hurt coming in. And that's what started me on this trip. I think that part of it is about telling, we've said all these things. Mr. Durkee spoke eloquently about all the different things we could recognize in a timeline. I think it's important to tell a complete history. It benefits all of us. I want to commend Morven for the work that they did to try and tell a more complete history of Stockton House. I want to commend everybody that's been working with, Not in Our Town, Truth and Transformation Committee, Civil Rights Commission, Bob Durkee, Sarah Rivet, lots of people on campus, for all the work that they've been doing to try and get us to have a better understanding. I feel that I think it's important for people to go to the New Jersey Commission of American Indian Affairs, which meets quarterly, so that you become more familiar with the work that the tribal nations in our state are doing. We have a lot of people who are working regularly with tribal communities who really their focus is working to save their communities and also environmental issues, and don't always have the bandwidth to respond to our many questions about what they would like us to do. So, meeting them where they are is great. Nagisa Manabe, who is actively working with Chief Vincent Mann of the Ramapo, she could use support with the stuff to support the work of the Ramapo Land Foundation. On August 26th at 7 p.m., the library is hosting Chief Mann on a program. You're all very welcome. In fact, I would love to see you there. The Ramapo and the Ringwood Mines Superfund site, history, culture, education, and environmental justice. So people who are looking to connect with the Ramapo can do so at that time. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. I want to support Nick's presentation. Bye.
Anyone else who wants to get up, say anything? Okay, that's fine. Do we have anyone? Let's see. Oh, there we go. No, I don't see any hands up. Okay. Thank you again.
Can I just say one last thing? No, thank you everyone that came to speak on this, and also someone that I meant to recognize, and I made myself a note, but Tommy Parker, who also was one of the individuals who took the lead in working on Indigenous Peoples Day, and also this effort. He wanted to be here today, but unfortunately he couldn't be, but he's in our thoughts.
Okay, so I was going to mention Tommy also. I don't know if you know, but Tommy is now undergoing surgery. He had a massive stroke.
Yeah.
And he's in the hospital right now. So we send our healing thoughts.
And that's why I wanted to mention him and let his family know that he's in our thoughts and prayers.
Okay.
I just wanted to say.
I'm sorry.
I just want to say that I just got word that Tommy's in the recovery room, so he is out of surgery, so that's, yeah. I also just want to say one more thing, which is that I wanted to thank everyone who's been involved with this for your persistence on this issue. I think David mentioned a few weeks ago about how long it often takes to accomplish things in our municipal ecosystem. And so I just want to acknowledge that this has been a long slog and to apologize that it has taken us this long. And I want to express my appreciation for all of you for being persistent and hanging in there, and to just let you know we are always working to try to expedite, but we do know that the arc of the moral universe is long, and that includes in the municipal universe. So, but thank you all for persisting, and this is a very, it's really even all the more gratifying when we finally do are able to accomplish things that you all have worked hard on. So thank you.
Okay, thank you all again. Have a great evening. Appreciate the presentation. Okay, next up, Witherspoon Street, Lee Avenue to Valley Road, Phase 3 concept plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim Purcell, Assistant Municipal Engineer, going to present the conceptual development of the Phase 3 roadway improvements to Witherspoon Street tonight. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the project design team, which consists of Deanna Stockton, our Deputy Administrator next to me, myself, Justin Lesko, our Planning Director on my side me here. Elizabeth Kim has been instrumental in this, as well as Taylor Saputo, our Municipal Arborist. Our consultant is T&M Associates. They have been our consultant on the entire Witherspoon Street project. Tejal Patel is the project manager. Nick Pasillo, roadway design. Tim Morris for stormwater design. And Bruce Klein for traffic. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the roadway improvement project phases and the schedule. Phase 3, we had a project walkthrough, and I'll review that for everyone. Phase 3, key design components. I won't bother everybody with the bullets. As you know, Phase 1 is under construction right now and is scheduled to be completed in May 2003. That takes the improvements from Nassau Street to Green Street. We are using New Jersey DOT municipal aid funds for that project, as well as our own capital improvement funds. Phase 2 is Green Street to Lee Avenue. We're going to start construction of that next month. And as Deanna mentioned, we will have a pre-construction meeting for the public on May 10th in this room at 7 o'clock. We're using NJDOT municipal aid funds for that project, as well as our own capital improvement funds, and we're financing it through the New Jersey Transportation Infrastructure Bank, which gives us some benefits in terms of lower interest rates and not having to put down payments. Phase 3, which I'll discuss tonight, is from Lee Avenue to Valley Road. Preliminary design will be starting up as soon as this meeting's over. We're going to work on preliminary design through June. Final design will be completed in September. We will bid in September, and we have to award a construction contract by October 21st. That is because we are using New Jersey DOT municipal aid funds, and they've set a deadline of October 21st for us to encumber those funds. We're also using, of course, our own capital improvement funds and financing it through the Transportation Infrastructure Bank. We had a project walkthrough on February 15th, which just included Princeton. We didn't even have our consultant with us on that day. We wanted to know what the stakeholders in Princeton wanted to see. It included a number of stakeholders, including all of our emergency management personnel, the school district, historic preservation, planning, engineering, and I think I covered them all, and the mayor, and yeah, police, fire, PFARS, and the discussion that took place was that we wanted to reduce the roadway width from its current configuration of 32 to 33 feet wide to 30 feet wide, increase safety for bicycling and walking. These are the overall goals for this project. Design it for school buses and fire apparatus, not large trucks. Install traffic calming measures like bump outs and raised crosswalks, making pedestrians seen by cars, in that way making it safer for them to cross the street. Install ADA compliant sidewalks and curb ramps, replace and add some street trees, reconstruct the firehouse access. It turns out that when a fire truck pulls into the firehouse, they scrape the bottom of the truck. So we're going to reconstruct the access to eliminate their bottoming out. And reconstruct driveways with aprons and eliminate where they're unnecessary. In other words, putting sidewalks at grade instead of having pedestrians cross driveways and other intersections at the street level. We're going to make it primarily pedestrian focused. Other considerations during the walkthrough were to widen the sidewalks on the west side to allow CPES, Community Park Elementary School, students on bikes to be able to share it with pedestrians. Install some sort of stormwater management, a best management practice green infrastructure, like a roadside rain garden or some other sort of green infrastructure at the municipal building. And investigate improvements for the bus drop-off at the elementary school, perhaps placing a bus lane on school property. We did investigate that. You won't even see this in this because it just doesn't work. So it's not even in our concept plan. The existing conditions, as I said, are 32, 33-foot wide pavement with concrete curbs, which include an 8-foot parking lane and 2 12-foot travel lanes. The pavement widens out to 44 feet wide at the school in order to allow the 12-foot wide bus lane drop-off area. We have parking on the east side of the street. We have 4-foot wide sidewalks in some places and up to 6-foot wide sidewalks in others. We also have a very narrow landscape and tree area between the curb and sidewalk. So, our proposed conditions. We really are focusing on calming the traffic in this area. Just to remind everybody, we've already reduced the speed limit on Witherspoon Street from 25 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour. That gave us the ability as well to reduce the design speed because typically design speed is 5 miles an hour over the posted speed. By reducing the posted speed 5 miles an hour, we got to reduce our design speed 5 miles an hour. So we're planning on putting in 2 11-foot travel lanes. We're going to construct raised crosswalks at Guillot Avenue and Henry Avenue. This stemmed from our walkthrough where we spoke with the school district about where young children cross the street. So we chose these 2 locations because they're the most active in this phase. We have other active street crossing areas in phase 2 that we're improving as well. cars, as they're trying to turn left into the driveway, cars coming down northbound on Witherspoon Street will swing around them on the outside, and it's a very unsafe situation. So we're going to make it so that that's no longer possible. We're going to stripe a shoulder line to separate parking from the travel lane to help delineate what the travel lanes are. That is also a traffic calming measure. We are going to allow shared use by bicycles, but not as the primary route. We're going to use enhanced sharrows to alert motorists. Sharrows are meant for two purposes. Sharrows are meant to identify to bicyclists that you can use the road. More importantly, they're meant to alert motorists that bicyclists might use the road. We are not intending on trying to put little children on Witherspoon Street on bicycles. It's just not safe. So what we're doing is we're upgrading our sidewalks. The sidewalk will be 5 feet wide, which is our Princeton standard width, on the east side of the road, which is the side with the meeting house, the firehouse, and the other businesses. On the west side, we're going to widen it to 6 feet. It already exists as a 6-foot wide sidewalk in some locations, particularly between Lee and Birch. It's 6 feet wide. We're going to widen it to 6 feet from Birch all the way down to Valley, and that will allow shared use by bicyclists and pedestrians. We're investigating whether or not we can put stencils on certain portions of that to indicate that a pedestrian stencil and a bicycle stencil to indicate that they're supposed to share the road. So we may do that. In particular, with this 6 foot wide, we want the bicycle path for the elementary school students to be from Ray's Crosswalk to Ray's Crosswalk. So from Gio to Henry, we want the students to ride across the raised crosswalks and come down the widened sidewalk to get to school. We're going to put in pedestrian level lighting. One of the concerns that we have in Princeton is the amount of light pollution that we have. So we're instructing PSE&G to remove the overhead Cobra street lighting, which is highway lighting, and we're going to put in sufficient pedestrian level lighting that's going to be identical to what's in Phase 2 and Phase 1, the decorative street level lighting, which will provide sufficient illumination for pedestrians and for illuminating the roadway. But as I like to say, at night, motor vehicles have lights. They don't really need to have the entire roadway illuminated. So we're only illuminating the road to the minimum standard necessary. Street trees. As you've probably noticed, most of the trees are gone on Witherspoon Street. PSE&G has recently been replacing poles, and they're upgrading their overhead electric. And as they went through town, we asked them just to remove the trees because we want to plant trees that will be more appropriate to underneath the wires. So we will have underwire street trees where the utility poles are, and we will have larger shade trees that grow taller where we don't have utility poles. So we don't have to worry about PSE&G coming in and pruning the trees, if you can call it pruning. We are reducing the on-street parking spaces, not a whole lot. We do have businesses in the area that have to be served, so there are a few places, particularly right near the school, where we're going to be eliminating a few parking spaces. Those little tiny graphics that you see are these. This is the proposed typical roadway cross-section in the vicinity of 300 Witherspoon Street, which is the Capitol Health building just next door to us. It's a full-width cross-section that shows that there's parking on one side and the 2 lanes. If you can see it, we're moving the curb line in a little bit. So we're taking away the 1.5 to 2 feet of roadway by widening the sidewalk and the landscape area so the trees have more space and pedestrians have more space. This is a cross-section right across from the driveway at the elementary school to show the very wide area in front of the elementary school on the left-hand side of the screen, which will be landscaped, and the bump out on the other side of the street, which also becomes a wide landscaped area. And the street level lighting and the street trees being underwire trees on one side, and the larger, taller trees on the other side as shade trees.
Jim, I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. One of the sidewalks, the 6-foot sidewalk, is shown outside of the right-of-way on this diagram, and I'm
That is
wondering
correct.
why.
That is the sidewalk on the school property.
In the last slide, it was within the right-of-way.
It is in the right-of-way on the other slide. This at 300 Witherspoon Street, the sidewalk is within the municipal right-of-way. And as you cross over onto the school property, it jogs over and it's on it's on the school property, not in the municipal right-of-way.
Okay.
The reason for that is because in the same vicinity, we have the 12-foot wide school bus turnout lane, and the sidewalk was shifted many years ago in order to make room for that lane. So.
Thanks.
This is a plan sheet. I'm not sure you can see what we're doing here, but the things that I would like to point out, and I mentioned earlier, is the driveways. We are including the municipal driveway, making it a driveway with an apron, raising it up to the level of the sidewalk so the sidewalk has precedence. It will no longer be a crosswalk with curb ramps and detectable warning surfaces. Both of our driveways will be that way. We're doing the same thing to the driveway to the Valley Road School parking lot for the buses. We're leaving it wide enough for the buses to be able to make the turn, but they're going to have to go up a driveway apron. We already have an apron at the firehouse, but we're going to improve it so that the fire trucks don't bottom out. We're going to put the correct striping in front of the firehouse so that people know they're near a firehouse. We're going to replace the warning beacons that currently don't operate so that when the fire trucks are leaving, people are warned ahead of time. We are planning on a rain garden right along the frontage of between the parking lot and the street. We're going to remove the white pine trees in order to do that, but we are going to plant some trees within the rain garden that are hydrophilic and will survive better. The pine trees are currently in declining health, according to our arborist. We also are planning some landscaping around our new EV charging stations and the electric equipment that stands out quite starkly at the moment, but that will be included in this project. As we work our way up to the next street, you'll see that we have the raised crosswalk at Guyot Avenue along with the bump out. We have an at-grade, a street-grade crosswalk at the school entrance. But also, please note that we're doing the same thing to the school driveways that we're doing to our own municipal driveway and making them an apron with the sidewalk at grade. The bump out across the street is shown in this plan, across the street from the driveway, and we'll be extending those driveways and putting in new aprons for those businesses over there. They're mixed use, business and residences. And then this last part, throughout this whole side of the west side, please note that it is a 6-foot sidewalk. I believe this slide is out of date. I think it says 5-foot wide sidewalk between north of Birch. It's really 6 feet. Currently, it is a current 6-foot wide sidewalk, and we're going to replace it with a 6-foot wide sidewalk. Raised crosswalk, raised crosswalk again at Henry Avenue, and we've spoken with the owner of that property. They currently have a driveway opening at the location where we're putting in our raised crosswalk. It is Locomotion, just up the street at the corner of Henry Avenue, and the property owner is happy that we're eliminating that and putting in this bump out with some landscaping and fixing up the area. Enhanced crosswalks, all of the crosswalks will be brought up to speed with new enhancements. Of course, all the appropriate signage. What was it that I wanted to point out? Oh, one little stretch, that stretch between Birch Avenue and the end of the project. Phase 2 of the Witherspoon Street project has a 5-foot wide sidewalk, which is 44 inches of concrete with 2 running bond pattern borders that are the concrete pavers that are exactly the same as what are on Phase 1. So it's a transition through the Witherspoon-Jackson Historic District to identify and be distinct for that district. So the district ends at Birch Avenue, and we're carrying that pattern on down to Birch Avenue. I think I'll stop here and ask if there are any questions, because now I'm going to talk about sanitary sewers and utilities, and I don't know if anybody really wants.
Thanks, Jim.
Any questions from council?
Eve, then David?
I just want you to address, first of all, thank you. This was, and I appreciate that since I saw this a few days ago at the Witherspoon-Jackson meeting, I guess it's now a week ago, you've made several changes and corrections, so thank you for being on top of that. I was hoping you could say a few minutes about the implications of narrowing, the safety implications of narrowing the driving area. It's not the proper term, but going from a 40-inch cartway to a travel lane.
Yes.
Thank you, David.
Sure. Narrowing the roadway, and it's been demonstrated time and time again that even narrowing a roadway just by bringing the stripes in without narrowing the pavement creates a little bit of friction for motorists. They feel less comfortable speeding. So by narrowing the roadway, not only with striping, but also with these raised crosswalks and our bump outs, we create more friction. And more friction means people slow down. I don't know if anybody's noticed at all, but there is a raised crosswalk in Phase 1, and we get a lot of remarks that you can't see it, but traffic slows down. People are driving much slower between Nassau Street and Spring Street. And it is because we've narrowed the travel lane, put these bump outs in, and put in these traffic calming measures. We believe the same thing will happen all the way through. Regardless of the fact that we have changed the speed limit to 20 miles an hour and there's a sign right there, I will venture to say that there's probably only 2 people in this room that actually do that, if they drive that way. And I know who those 2 are. It's hard. It's hard to go 20 miles an hour on a road that's 30 feet wide. So we're going to make it easier for you to travel at the speed limit and not feel like you have to barrel through here. Is that what you were looking for?
That's so much better than I could have done myself. Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thanks. Just want to say that, everything we've done here, safety is number 1 always. So just want to underline that. Thank you.
And I do want, and I'll finish up with a little bit of a dissertation on the whole idea of bike lanes. We're also replacing sanitary sewers through here, and there are other underground utilities, as everybody knows, that's been on Witherspoon Street. It's been kind of crazy with PSE&G Electric replacing their poles, PSE&G Gas replacing their gas mains, putting in their services now. We're going to be putting in drainage improvements. So the first thing that will happen, both in Phase 2 and had happened in Phase 1 and will happen in Phase 3, is you'll see the whole road dug up with new pipes being put in it. But that's the nature of this business. Already talked about the schedule for this. We really need to get into construction. Why does that say August? Oh, I'm sorry. This is, I forgot about this slide. T&M threw this slide in. One thing that we are doing is separating out the intersection of Valley Road and Witherspoon Street from this Phase 3 project. We're going to go Phase 3, and we're going to stop just before the intersection, right outside the municipal building, because we want to look at ways that we can make this intersection safer. And those alternatives might include a roundabout, upgraded traffic signals, existing traffic signals, not doing anything different. We don't know yet, but that's going to take more time than designing the improvements down to this point. And if we do decide to do something, we will be required to get New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection permits because the intersection is within a 100-year floodplain. So we will need flood hazard area permits to do any construction that is of a substantial nature. If we leave this as traffic signal and just change the timing, it won't be a big deal. But if we put in a roundabout, we'll need to go to NJDEP, and currently they're taking 9 to 12 months just to review plans. So we know that we will be into next year awarding a contract next summer if we decide to make any major improvements here. And finally, before I get to questions, I really do want to address the whole bicycle path issue. We had a discussion during phase 2 as to why we can't put bike lanes on the street. That carries right through here to phase 3, but I want to reiterate some of the concerns that we have as engineers. We have to balance the needs of everyone. We have to balance the needs of the motorists with the needs of the pedestrians, with the needs of the bicyclists, with the business owners on the street, with the residents on the street, with the school, with our fire department, with everybody. In order to do that, we have to meet certain parameters. For example, the 2 11-foot lanes. We can't go narrower than that because that creates a hazardous situation for our fire trucks to drive down the road, or our snow plows to pass one another. So, and 11 feet is really kind of a guideline in engineering design anyway. We could eliminate parking, but that impacts our businesses. We could eliminate street trees. Yeah. We could put pedestrians on one side of the street and bicyclists on another side of the street. None of that really works in a balanced way, and we just don't have sufficient width to put bike lanes on the roadway in a safe manner. We could do it, but it would never be safe enough for me to put my 6-year-old kid on that roadway. We've worked very hard to try to figure out how to do this, and it just doesn't work. So I really want to put that out there. We do not want to create unsafe situations. So I hope everybody understands that. If
We do.
we had 100 feet,
Jim,
yes.
we got it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're jumping to questions. David had his hand up, and then Michelle.
Thanks. So, thanks, Jim. It was a really thorough presentation. You answered a number of the questions I had from looking through the packet. But I do have 2 remaining questions. One is, the last slide of the plans made it look like Albert Way has a grade crosswalk like many of the other driveways,
Yes,
which is
we're
great. I don't think it does currently, right?
It does not.
Okay. So, but the follow-up question is there any possibility of getting those raised crosswalks at any of the side streets, Henry, Geo? I know we talked about this some in phase 2, and there were concerns about drainage. But I just, if there's any possibility of doing it, I'd like to see us do it.
I don't have an answer.
Okay. Take a look.
Well,
We
we
can look-
don't
we
have to
can
have an
look
answer
into
for
it.
everything. I mean, saying we'll take it under consideration and look
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
is acceptable.
And then the other question, 6 feet wide, for a path that's really shared by pedestrians and bicyclists, and with, I think, a fair bit of traffic of the school kids, feels a little narrow to me, and it looked like there was still some room within the right-of-way to go a little wider, like 8 feet, something like that. You know, you look at the sidewalks where we're having school kids ride, actually when the teachers let them to, like over at the middle school, and the sidewalks are quite a bit wider than 6 feet. So that's, you know, a question is whether you've considered making that sidewalk on the west side more than 6 feet.
And I should have mentioned that we have asked our designer to look at how much wider they can make the sidewalk.
Awesome.
Thank you. Michelle?
So I don't want to beat the proverbial dead horse, but I appreciate your bike path, or bike lane dissertation. I just wanted to add a couple things because we were, you know, in these discussions in phase 2. And there are a couple more points that I just wanted to make that you raised with us. And that was, one is that when you do the traffic calming and all these measures, that it really becomes a bike boulevard. So for those on-street bikers that drive faster, that it's just as safe, if not safer, than the bike lane, and that the bike lane on a narrow street without the traffic calming is actually more dangerous. So the real solution for the slow bikers, and I'll raise my hand as one of them, you know, and the kids going to school, which is the most important, would be shared paths. And shared paths, I think, are really a solution through our town because we have so many narrow streets. So, you know, I was convinced after, you know, much back and forth on this that doing the bike boulevard on a street like Witherspoon Street, and this may be something we look at in other areas in town where you have this traffic calming, really allows for more safety. You know, you see the really fast bikers with the helmets and the spandex, should I say? They're going fast, so they want to be on the street. And then, you know, others that are comfortable, and maybe if I get a little bit better on my bike, I'll be there too. Or I can be on the sidewalk with the kids. But, you know, you've got parents taking their kids in trailers. You have kids learning to bike. I remember when my kids were little, they would swerve all over. It's better that they're on the sidewalk and it's a shared path. If you can make it wider, that would be fabulous. I don't know if you could, I was going to suggest maybe going to 6 feet on the other side, so you have traffic on both sides of the street that's shared. So I'll leave that to you to look at, but I think it's a terrific plan, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mia?
There's not an answer to this, but just I want you to keep in mind that you were talking about a roundabout at Valley Road and making that intersection, enhancing safety there. I think we don't know exactly what will be happening on the Valley Road property. As you may remember, there was a proposal by the school district to put a 5-6 school there, and there was a great deal of discussion about the traffic circulation pattern at that time, and one of the reasons why it ultimately didn't go through was because of the concerns about traffic circulation. I think we can safely say that both the council and the school board are aware of the fact that we cannot continue to allow one of our town's prime sites to rot away. Most of it is now uninhabitable and condemned. And I think there's a strong commitment from both sides to figure out ultimately what makes what is the highest and best use for that site, which is as yet to be determined, but I would hate to see us constrain ourselves by making decisions involving the traffic circulation pattern there that would then limit our options for what would happen on that site. So no answer right now, just let's, you know, keep that in mind. And then the other thing is another development that will be happening nearby, and this relates more to the previous phase, but you know, the Franklin site, affordable housing will be unfolding over the next year. There is interest among some of the residents in seeing bike lanes put on Franklin. I know some of my colleagues don't agree with that. I am not taking. Are you on board with that?
This colleague.
Oh, please note, on the record. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're never moving forward with any decisions that would constrain, again, same idea, constrain our options in terms of what happens on Franklin as you come off Witherspoon, because that is the main artery for school kids getting, and it's my preference that we would have bike lanes there. So that's all. Thank you so much for your bike lane dissertation, Jim. Appreciate it.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? Michelle, again?
I just want to clarify as far as Franklin, I mean, that's a different kind of a street, right? So it's a slower street, and you could have bike lanes there, whereas with Witherspoon Street, there's just much more traffic, big trucks and things. So that was the consideration and my understanding of a bike boulevard and traffic calming versus putting bike lanes on something like Franklin. So just to clarify my position.
Okay.
My understanding, anyway.
All good. Okay. Anybody from the audience want to say anything about the concept plan? And again, it's a concept. It's not the final plan.
Can I ask you a question?
You should come on up. Ask away.
Do I have to introduce myself again?
We're good. It's Kim again.
Okay, good. It's a general question. You know, you did mention with the lights that that you've chosen street pedestrian level lighting to reduce light pollution. I was just wondering if light pollution is something you take into consideration with all your development, and if it's, you know, there's different kinds of, there's lights that just go down, and, you know, what you're taking into consideration.
Yes, the answer is yes, we do. And these street lights that we're putting in actually have full cutoff, so there is no light projection above the fixture.
Okay. See no other comments? Thank you all for that presentation. Let's go to public comments for items not on the agenda. So if anyone here in the audience or online wants to ask a question or say something on a topic that's not on the agenda, now is the time to do that. All right, seeing nobody getting up and seeing no hands raised, thank you. We'll move on. Next up is an ordinance introduction. Ordinance 2023-12, an ordinance authorizing the sale of certain land to Lori and Tariq Mansour, pursuant to NJSA 40A 12-13. The public hearing will be April 24th, 2023. Is there a motion? Eve, thank you very much. David's got the second. That's a roll call vote.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Newland?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolutions. 23-148, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing a professional services agreement with Gregory Sandusky, P.E., PLS, in the not-to-exceed amount of $21,450 for tax map preparation. Is there a motion? David, thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Leticia. Questions or comments on the motion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
23-149, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton approving 2023 professional services agreement with the Law Office of Karen Casey Esquire for the Princeton Zoning Board of Adjustment attorney in the not-to-exceed amount of $25,000. Is there a motion? Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second? Thank you, David. Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Next up is the consent agenda. Does anyone have anything that they need to discuss? If not, all right, if not, Eve's moving the consent agenda. Thank you very much. Dave seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, David, do you have a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second? Thank you, Eve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a great night. Thanks for attending.